On May 1st, 2023, a 69-year-old doctor who had transformed American healthcare died unexpectedly at Everest's Camp 2, weeks before his summit attempt. He had prepared meticulously, and there was no climbing accident. His dream was built on decades of discipline and record-breaking climbs. Yet even the best could not outpace Everest's invisible dangers. How did such an experienced climber fall victim so suddenly, and what does his death reveal about high-altitude risks for every ambitious climber? Jonathan Sugarman's story began far from the world's highest peaks. For more than 4 decades, he shaped American healthcare as a physician and executive, working to improve care for underserved communities across the country. In Seattle, he became known for his commitment to native health, mentoring young doctors at the Seattle Indian Health Board and building training programs that reach deep into the city's most vulnerable neighborhoods. As president and CEO of Qualis Health, later Comagene Health, he led the organization through nearly 2 decades of growth, doubling its size and expanding its reach nationwide. Colleagues remember his moral clarity and drive to raise standards, not just for patients, but for the entire field of health systems improvement. Yet even as his professional reputation grew, another passion quietly resurfaced. In his 50s, Sugarman returned to mountaineering, a pursuit he had set aside decades earlier. The pull of the mountains proved irresistible. He joined the Mountaineers, Seattle's storied climbing club, in 2010 and began training with the same discipline he had brought to medicine. Over the next decade, he climbed Mount Rainier 13 times, building strength and skill with each ascent. His ambition soon expanded beyond the Pacific Northwest. Driven by the challenge of the 7 summits, the highest mountain on every continent, he reached the top of Kilimanjaro in Africa, Aconcagua in South America, and Denali in Alaska. Each climb added to a growing list of achievements, and each summit fueled his determination to go higher. Friends and family watched as Sugarman's 2 worlds, service and adventure, intertwined. He approached every expedition with the methodical preparation of a physician and the humility of a lifelong learner. His training routines on Tiger Mountain became legendary among local climbers. By his late 60s, he stood out not just as a leader in healthcare, but as a serious alpinist, respected for both his experience and his relentless drive. For Sugarman, the mountains were never just a backdrop for personal triumph. They represented a lifelong pursuit of excellence, a test of limits, and a chance to prove that age and accomplishment need not diminish the hunger for new challenges. By early April 2023, Everest's south side was buzzing with activity. Jonathan Sugarman arrived at base camp on April 10, 2023, joining International Mountain Guides, a company known for its emphasis on safety and conservative decision-making. He was one of hundreds issued permits that spring, 463 foreign climbers in total, the highest number ever recorded. The mountain's lower camps filled with tents and gear as teams prepared for the weeks ahead. Sugarman's expedition followed a standard acclimatization schedule. After days at base camp, he and his team moved up through the Khumbu ice sol and settled into Camp 2, perched at roughly 21,000 feet in the western Khum. This camp, a collection of nylon shelters on a barren glacier, serves as a critical staging point for climbers adjusting to the thin air. Here, the oxygen level is less than half that of sea level, and every movement is a test of endurance. On May 1st, during a routine acclimatization rotation, not a summit push, Sugarman began feeling unwell. There was no storm, no avalanche, no technical failure on the route. According to International Mountain Guides, his death was not the result of a climbing accident or an environmental hazard. Guides and Sherpa support were present, and equipment functioned as intended. Despite these safeguards, Sugarman's condition deteriorated rapidly at Camp 2. He died there, surrounded by his team, before any evacuation could be attempted. His body remained at Camp 2 for several days, as poor weather delayed helicopter access. The incident sent ripples through the climbing community. Sugarman was the first American to die on Everest that season, and his passing came at a moment when the mountain was more crowded than ever before. The facts were stark. A well-prepared climber with a reputable guide service succumbed not to a fall or a storm, but to a sudden medical crisis at altitude. That reality would challenge assumptions about who is at risk on Everest. On April 12, 2023, 3 Sherpa climbers were killed in the Khumbu icefall while fixing ropes and carrying loads for commercial expeditions. Their loss underscored the relentless risks faced by the local workforce, even as hundreds of foreign climbers prepared for their own attempts on the mountain. By the time Jonathan Sugarman died at Camp 2 on May 1st, 2023, the Everest season was already under strain. Bad weather and high winds made helicopter flights impossible for several days, forcing his team to wait with him at 21,000 feet. The logistical challenge of recovering a body from that altitude is immense. Sherpa rescuers must navigate crevasses and shifting ice, often at great personal risk, to prepare a climber for an airlift. It was not until May 6th, 2023, that the weather cleared enough for a helicopter to reach Camp 2. Sugarman's body was flown to Kathmandu with the help of the U.S. Embassy, which coordinated between Nepalese authorities and his family back home. His death became the 4th of the season, following the Sherpa tragedy in the icefall. But the toll would continue to climb. By late May, Everest had claimed the lives of at least 17 climbers, possibly as many as 20, depending on how missing persons were counted. Chinese climber Suibin Chen, age 52, died near the south summit on May 18, 2023. One of several older mountaineers lost that spring. The sheer volume of climbers, 463 foreign permits issued, not counting Sherpa and support staff, pushed the mountain's rescue and recovery systems to their limits. Each fatality required extraordinary effort from guides, local workers, and embassy officials, all while the season's summit traffic continued above them. In this environment, the loss of a single climber became part of a much bigger story, a system stretched thin by record numbers, unpredictable weather, and the unforgiving nature of Everest itself. Climbers in their 60s and 70s face a biological reality that cannot be trained away. At 21,000 feet, the body's ability to absorb oxygen plummets. Even the healthiest older adults experience a blunted ventilatory response, meaning their brain and lungs simply do not ramp up breathing as forcefully when oxygen is scarce. Cardiac reserve also shrinks with age, so the heart has less capacity to handle sudden stress or hypoxia. Recovery from exertion and altitude exposure slows considerably, and acclimatization may lag days behind that of younger climbers. For Dr. Sugarman, these age-driven limits were compounded by a history of high-altitude pulmonary edema, a syndrome where fluid floods the lungs and suffocates even fit athletes. At Camp 2, even small missteps, mild dehydration, a restless night, or a minor infection can trigger a cascade the body cannot reverse. No technical failure, no storm, and no equipment malfunction intervened. The guides present were experienced and oxygen was available. Yet the clinical details of Sugarman's final hours remain locked in private logs and personal memories. Without access to pulse oximeter readings, oxygen flow records, or a formal autopsy, the precise cause remains uncertain, whether recurrent high-altitude pulmonary edema, cerebral edema, or a sudden cardiac event. Requests for guide notes, radio logs, and medical records have so far gone unanswered. The absence of a complete forensic account leaves both family and investigators with questions that only direct evidence can resolve. Sugarman's family chose to honor his memory by asking for donations to the Juniper Fund, which supports Sherpa families who lose loved ones in the mountains. This gesture reflects an understanding that Everest's dangers are not born equally. Colleagues remember Sugarman as a man who raised standards and cared deeply for those around him, whether in a hospital ward or on a Himalayan glacier. Steve House recalls his humility and eagerness to learn, even after decades in medicine. In August 2023, friends and loved ones gathered in Seattle to celebrate a life defined by service and curiosity. The questions left behind about physiology, risk, and responsibility remain as urgent as ever, echoing in every permit issued for the world's highest peak. Today, Everest grants more permits than ever, but the mountain's risks remain absolute, no matter your age, experience, or preparation. As older climbers pursue their dreams, each step above 8,000 meters is a gamble science still cannot predict. Ambition inspires, but nature never negotiates. Stay vigilant,